My name is Susan Hale. I'm 68 years old. I've been thinking a lot about disappointment lately, mostly because I spent my whole life trying not to feel it, and now it's what I live with every day. I'm not telling this because I want anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm telling it because time is thin now, and the truth feels heavier when you carry it alone. These days, my mornings are quiet. I wake up before the sun, even though I don't need to. Old habits don't retire when you do. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that's usually gone cold before I remember to drink it. I look out the window at a street I've lived on for 22 years, and I realize how few people know my name. That's when it hits me most clearly. I was careful my entire life. And somehow, I still ended up here. I used to believe disappointment was something you could avoid if you planned well enough. If you didn't reach too far. If you didn't ask for too much. If you didn't expect people to be better than they were capable of being. I thought disappointment came from wanting the wrong things. So I trained myself not to want very much at all. That seemed wise at the time. When you're young, caution looks like maturity. People praise you for it. I grew up in a small house with a mother who worried and a father who rarely spoke. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. Money came with tension. Silence came with dinner. My mother used to say, "Don't get your hopes up," like it was advice handed down from God. So I didn't. I learned early that wanting things made adults nervous. Wanting meant questions. Wanting meant disappointment when the answer was no. Wanting meant attention. I was a quiet child. Teachers loved me. I did what was expected. I never caused trouble. I learned how to read a room before I learned how to read myself. By the time I was 20, I had already decided what kind of life I would not have. I would not struggle. I would not be reckless. I would not risk heartbreak if I could help it. I told myself that was a strength. In my 20s, I worked as an administrative assistant at an insurance office downtown. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable. I told myself excitement was overrated. Excitement led to disappointment. Stability led to sleep. I had friends who bounced between jobs, who chased ideas, who fell in love with the wrong people. I watched them cry in bathrooms and laugh too loudly at bars. I smiled and nodded and drove home alone. I remember thinking, I'm doing this right. I dated, but cautiously. I liked men who were kind but not complicated. Men who didn't stir anything too deep. Men who didn't ask too many questions about what I wanted. There was one man, David, when I was 27. He was gentle and curious, and he talked about books like they mattered. He asked me once what I would do if I weren't afraid of failing. I laughed it off. I told him I wasn't afraid of failing. That was a lie, but I didn't know it yet. He wanted to move to another city for a job. He asked if I would come with him. Not in a dramatic way. Just calmly. Like it was a reasonable thing to ask. I told him I couldn't. I told him I had responsibilities. I told him I liked my life the way it was. What I meant was, I didn't want to be disappointed if it didn't work. He left. We hugged awkwardly. I told myself I'd save myself a lot of pain. I didn't notice what I'd lost, because loss can be quiet when it arrives politely. My 30s passed quickly. Work promotions came slowly but steadily. I bought a modest condo. I filled it with furniture chosen for durability, not beauty. I told myself taste was another kind of expectation. I attended weddings. I sent thoughtful gifts. I smiled in photos. I told people I was happy. And in a way, I was. I wasn't unhappy. That was the bar I kept. I called my parents every Sunday. I visited on holiday. I did what a good daughter does. I didn't tell them much about myself, because there wasn't much to tell. Or so I thought. I avoided arguments. I avoided big conversations. I avoided anything that might crack the surface of my life and show something messy underneath. At work, I was known as dependable. At home, I was known as quiet. I started turning down invitations without realizing it. Dinner felt tiring. Parties felt loud. New friendships felt like work with uncertain payoff. I told myself I preferred my own company. Years pass faster when you're not marking them with anything memorable. They blur. I remember a coworker once asking me why I never took vacations longer than a few days. I shrugged and said I didn't need much. I didn't tell her that I was afraid of coming back changed, or worse, wishing I hadn't come back at all. Avoiding disappointment requires constant maintenance. You have to keep your life small enough to manage. My 40s arrived quietly. My parents are aging. My mother grew softer, then forgetful. My father's silences stretched longer. I became their helper without quite becoming their confidant. When my mother got sick, I was there. I organized appointments. I filled pill boxes. I slept in a chair beside her bed. I did everything right. She died on a Wednesday afternoon in March. I remember the nurse's shoes squeaking on the floor. I remember the way the room smelled faintly of cleaning solution and lavender soap. I remember thinking, at least I didn't expect anything more. That thought scares me now. After the funeral, people went back to their lives. I went back to mine. My phone rang less often. Sundays grew quieter. I filled the time with errands and television and small routines that felt safe. I didn't feel lonely at first. Loneliness doesn't always announce itself. It seeps in. It settles. I told myself I was content. Contentment became my shield. Contentment didn't ask anything of me. But something strange started happening. I would feel a tightness in my chest at random moments. In grocery stores. In parking lots. Sitting at stoplights. It wasn't panic. It was something closer to grief, but without a name. I started thinking about old conversations. Things I'd said no to. Invitations I'd declined. Calls I hadn't returned because I was tired or busy or just didn't feel like it. I told myself everyone has regrets. I told myself this was normal. In my early 50s, I retired earlier than planned. The office had changed. I felt out of place. Younger people moved faster. I took the package and told myself I'd earn the rest. The first few months felt like freedom. I slept in. I reorganized closets. I read books I'd meant to read for years. Then the days stretched. Without work, there was no structure. Without structure, there was no distraction. Without distraction, there was I. I realized how few people would notice if I didn't leave the house for days. I realized how rarely anyone called just to talk. I had built a life that required very little of me. Now it was asking for something I didn't know how to give. The turning point came in a hospital room, again. This time, it was my younger sister. We weren't close, but we weren't distant either. We existed in parallel. Holiday cards. Occasional lunches. Polite concern. She had lived differently from me. Took risks. Fell hard. Failed publicly. Loved loudly. Cancer doesn't care about your philosophy. She looked small in the bed. Older than me, somehow. She held my hand and told me she was scared. I didn't know what to say. I had spent a lifetime avoiding moments like that. She told me she was glad she'd lived the way she had. Even the parts that hurt. Especially those parts. I nodded. I smiled. I told her she'd always been brave. She died 2 weeks later. After that, something broke open. Not dramatically. Quietly. I started seeing my life not as safe, but as unfinished. Not peaceful, but untouched. I realized that avoiding disappointment had cost me more than disappointment ever could have. It had cost me depth. It had cost me closeness. It had cost me stories worth telling. I had protected myself from pain so well that I had also protected myself from meaning. There are things that can't be fixed at this age. That's the hardest truth. I can't go back and say yes to David. I can't create decades of shared memories. I can't rebuild relationships that were never allowed to fully exist. I can't get back the years I spent waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a myth, by the way. I know that now. There are nights when I lie in bed and think about all the conversations I postponed. The apologies that felt unnecessary at the time. The truths I swallowed because they seemed inconvenient. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't negligent. I was careful. Carefulness can hollow you out if you let it. I see people now who remind me of myself when I was younger. Polite. Reasonable. Always waiting. I want to tell them that time doesn't reward restraint the way you think it will. But I don't say much. I remember how I didn't listen either. If you're listening to this, I don't know where you are in your life. I don't know what scares you. I don't know what you're avoiding. I only know what it feels like to reach the end and realize you were the one who disappointed yourself. Not by failing. By never fully showing up. I wish I had known that disappointment from trying fades faster than disappointment from not trying. I wish I had known that most regrets don't come from what goes wrong, but from what never gets a chance to go right. I wish I had known that being remembered less than you expected hurts more than being judged ever could. I don't have many years left. I can feel that. My body tells me things my mind used to ignore. I move more slowly. I rest more. I forget names. I'm trying now, in small ways. I call people. I say what I mean more often. I allow myself to want things, even if they don't pan out. It doesn't erase the past. Nothing does. But it makes the present feel a little more real. If this meant something to you, I'm glad. If it didn't, that's okay too. I didn't say it to persuade anyone. I said it because it was time to tell the truth. My name is Susan Hale. I'm 68 years old. And this is what I know now, when there isn't much time left to pretend.